So I have my notes right here, and the first artist that I decided to have a commentary or to ask questions to was Devin. And essentially what I wanted to share is that I enjoy this idea of learning multiple mediums in order to communicate more. Conceptually, I think of exploring these types of mediums as learning a new language. And the more you're able to articulate in a variety of ways, the larger your potential audience is able to grow. And I feel like whether it be through coding, linking that to integrations of quilting and those different types of communication, music, writing, physically creating art with your hands, these are all mediums conceptually, which are ways to translate a concept in hopes that other people will be able to understand your singular articulation. I also liken this to echoing existences, as well as creating a system or hive, like a beehive, in order to project into the void of our placement, individually and as we exist within our unique groups that we choose to be a part of and navigate through. I also really like this idea of refining these skills when you learn how to translate through these different mediums in order to create a sophisticated way of communicating.
I think there's something there in the sense of people are producing, they're creating aesthetics that are speaking to their needs, their communities, and the materials that they have access to. And they're creating quite sophisticated visual vocabularies that are, that are connected to oh, I want to see this in the world, so I make it happen with other folks.
It's like this genuine understanding of what things do in relationship to next to one another and how that forms and echoes we exist. So the next person that I decided to have a commentary on and offer a question to for anyone to answer is Ballen. I enjoyed his photographs so much because of how they were composed and the level of consideration that went into building up and making a photograph. I also liked the humanness, the rawness, and the very matter-of-factness that came along with taking the photographs he did in people's spaces of which they occupied, whether it be their home, their caves, outside, just any spaces that they had some type of agency of self in. I'm gonna look at my notes, but my commentary essentially is something that I found incredibly interesting is Ballen mentioning consistently making a photograph versus taking a photograph. Making a photograph, the words for me translated to lending itself to his constant redirection to the importance of composition and the attention to detail required to create what he calls metaphorical visual statements.
I almost never hear the word composition. And it's actually horrific, I have to tell you. God knows how many museums and galleries I've been in my life, thousands of them. And I'm always amazed that the people making these exhibitions, whether it's the photographer themselves or the curators or whatever, don't see the most basic mistake in these images. It's really quite alarming, I tell you the truth.
Because one of the questions that I asked him was he able to take the types of photographs he was able to take or make rather because of the relationships that he perhaps built? And he countered that with it didn't really matter if he had a relationship or not, because at the end of the day, he still had to make the photograph, consider the scene, and be very intentional about what he was making. And I really like this idea of making a photograph versus taking a photograph, because I feel like there comes a different level of intention just with words alone. Taking a photograph seems very arbitrary. Making a photograph, for me, it sounds like taking into consideration every small detail that is in frame. So yeah, thank you, Ballen.